AI is you have to be involved in AI one of three ways. And hopefully, maybe all three, but definitely one of three. You either need to be invested in AI as an investor, like AIQ, the different like AI tech stocks. You need to be using AI religiously in your business to make you more efficient, make you faster, and make you more powerful. Or
Back-end systems.
yes, or you need to, and guess understanding it also is part of that one. Or you need to be building AI because AI businesses, because that is there is no stopping this thing.
It's not
And
going anywhere.
and when we look back on right now, like 5 years from now, at the carnage that's taking place in the job market,
Oh,
the redistribution of wealth that's starting to happen
mhm.
right now
Yeah.
between the people who are involved and the people who are not, it is going to be unlike anything else in the history that we've ever seen.
Today on Side Hustle Saturday, we're sitting down with Mekka Don to talk about what it really looks like to evolve your identity, build across industries, and turn your name into something that works for you long after the spotlight shifts. From playing football at The Ohio State University to becoming a recording artist, an actor, attorney, speaker, and now the founder of an AI powered management platform. Now that is what reinvention with intention looks like. Let's get into it.
Mecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for
a
sure.
busy dude.
Man, it is busy, but it's all good. It's all good. That's the
You a
blessing.
busy dude. If I don't see you on the field at Ohio State, I see you doing a commercial. I see you launching an app, and we're gonna get into all of that and talk about that. But I worked with you before, and when I found out about your story, I was really, really intrigued because my platform for this year is about ecosystem building, which means in small terms or in layman's terms, it means building your personal brand. Your
Mhm.
business is just the foundation, and then you build on that, and you are the master of personal brand building. And I had to have you on the show because I was like, you got that to a T. And I
Thank you.
just wanted to tap into you so you can share what what you do because it's just amazing on the road that you have taken to build Mekka Don.
Yeah, thank you. I think part of it is just knowing what it is that you want and what you're trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
being consistent and being disciplined, being ready to pivot when it's time to pivot, and understanding that, and then also kind of understanding the industry that you're in and what it requires. Each industry kind of requires different things to be visible, to be successful, to acquire attention or eyes. So I think being intentional and understanding that, and I had somebody tell me before. I always thought this was a cool quote. He said, kind of dig a mile deep and an inch wide instead of a mile wide and an inch deep. And essentially what that means is, become an expert at what it is that you do. And I think when you become an expert at what it is that you do, a lot of the attention and success will flow from there.
100%. Now, let's talk about how you started out. You started out at the Ohio State University. Go Bucks.
Yeah, go Bucks. Yeah.
So you play football.
Mhm.
What did playing for Ohio State, how did that I know I had my son in football and
Mhm.
that builds a certain type of discipline. What did playing for Ohio State and playing football, what did that do for you?
It's interesting. I was an athlete my whole life. I didn't actually end up playing football until my senior year of high school. And I was fortunate enough to play on a really, really good team that
Hmm.
had a lot of other talented players on there. And as a result, I would get recruited or looked at from schools because they were coming to see these other players on my team. And they're like, wait, who's that fast wide receiver out there? And that's kind of how I got attention. And I ended up getting a full ride academic scholarship to Ohio State. And then I got invited to be a preferred walk-on at Ohio State, which was just unbelievable. That was a very huge change kind of in the direction of where I thought my life was going to go. Again, only playing football that one season. But one of the things that was so amazing about playing at Ohio State and being part of that ecosystem is one, as you mentioned, the discipline. You have to get up 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes, especially during the winter time. If going to class and trying to make sure you're balancing that with the demands of your football schedule,
Mhm.
the physical grueling nature of it, but then also the mental aspect of it and kind of balancing those. And then also just being able to watch, I think, greatness, how greatness really comes about, particularly in that space, from the coaching to the players, the regiments, the consistency, what it takes to actually really be great. And that was one of the things that I think was really helpful for me as I continued to grow, was kind of watching a lot of my teammates, former NFL guys that will come back. I would see Eddie George and those guys will come back, and seeing their workouts and really realizing the discipline that guys put in to be great. I think that was very, very pivotal moment in my life.
Yeah, and football, it's for a lot of football players, that's all they know.
Mhm.
Football. That's their whole being. And sometimes they go on and go off to the NFL, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes I feel like, and even when they're in the NFL, they struggle with what do I do next because that's all they know.
Mhm.
When you didn't go to the NFL and you stopped playing at Ohio State, when you stopped playing at Ohio State, did you struggle like with what were you going to be doing next? Like what was your identity? Like how did you navigate through that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my situation was slightly different than most players. Again, I was there on full ride academic scholarship, so that was kind of my primary focus. Playing football at Ohio State in that particular situation for me was a bonus. It was totally unexpected. I didn't grow up like, oh man, I'm going to the NFL. I played 1 year of football in high school, and then I went to Ohio State. So it wasn't, although I loved the sport, it was not part of my being truly at that point. So that was different from a lot of other guys that I, my teammates and other people that I've seen play football or any other sport at that level. And so it wasn't hard for me to transition out of it in the same way it was for other people, because I had very specific goals that, first of all, that I had to attain to maintain my scholarship. But then also I knew I wanted to go to law school. I had other interests in entertainment and music. I wanted to get to New York. So it wasn't really a tough transition for me because I had kind of already known that my route was not going to be
Mhm.
going to the NFL. That being said, though, I do think that the tougher transition was no longer being an athlete at all. I had been an athlete since I was 4 years old. So I was constantly, so everything that comes with that, the competition and the friendships and the camaraderie and the locker room talk, being on the field, on-field success and the glory and winning and losing and dealing with those things, having a set schedule, all of those type of things for sure. I think holistically, that was definitely a big change once I stopped, being an athlete, and you realize, wow, this is kind of the end of the road for my overall athletic career. Now, if I play, it's going to be intramurals or, for fun. It's a totally different life. So that was definitely a big change. But the good news for me is I always kind of had a plan. And so I was able to kind of go and execute that right away.
Yeah, I think anybody that plays sports, I think it kind of sets you up for success when it comes to entrepreneurship or anything that you do. It just gives you that mindset, it gives you that discipline, it gives you that acumen that you wasn't even looking for.
Mhm.
I think when you play sports, it just does something for you when it comes to moving on to other things. But enough of that. You had another feather that you put in your cap. You went to law school. And not just any law school. What law? Tell the people what law school you went to.
NYU, New York
See,
University School of Law.
see, that's not just any law. Now, so he just didn't not just any law school, NYU, and that right there, it's like wow, that's what an amazing accomplishment. So
Thank you.
when you went to law school, how did that change how you thought about ownership and leverage, and then you got the playing football? How did that all kind of like mesh together?
Another great question. Law school for me, I always tell people, it was like intellectual boot camp. It was a big test on your mental fortitude, your strength, your discipline. You're essentially learning a new language, which is also another thing I say. It's learning how to speak differently, how to think differently, learning how the world works in a way that you had no clue truly before that. And I think it should be mandatory. At least first year should be mandatory for everybody. I think just to understand.
What?
Yeah, I think understanding how the law works and how it affects every single segment of society, I think is very
Yeah.
important. It's for everyday person. But that was a very big shift again in my life and understanding how life works, how business works, where the opportunities are, how law and lawyers affect every single industry, why people hate lawyers in some ways. And I had a lot of education in that kind of and just understanding the kind of the ecosystem, all the ecosystems that lawyers kind of affect and all the different opportunities. And then just a different way of thinking. And, for me, I ended up, being an IP lawyer, mostly trademarks and copyrights, and really trying to understand how those rights affect. First of all, why do we even have ability to have those type of rights and that type of protection? What's the purpose and the reasoning behind it? But also understanding how those things protect your brand, which ultimately we're going to get to, I imagine. And understanding that, I have Mekka Don, for example, is trademarked. That is trade.
Mhm.
There are people out there that use that name or try to use that name,
Yeah.
but they all can and do get cease and desist letters from me because I own it. And that's very valuable as you're continuing to build your brand, because there are imitators, there are people who will come and try to, I guess, mooch, for lack of a better word, off of the success that you built. And so that's why those laws are in place. So all of those things, again, I didn't necessarily realize those things as I was growing up and just, moving through life. And so that was for a lot of reasons, but law school was one of my favorite moments in time. It really, really set me up for a lot of the things I'm doing now.
So you had law school, and I think what you said it was a valid point. I think we all need to take some sort of class on law, or because I think even if you're not going to school for law, it teaches you different things like how to communicate,
Hmm.
how to research.
Sure.
It teaches you different things that you think that you won't use in your everyday life, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're working for the man or working in the private sector.
Mhm.
It teaches you different things. So you do bring a valid point. So okay, so you're building this ecosystem. You was an athlete, you went to school, so you went to law school, so now you're building this personal brand, right? So what kind of traits, what things did you take from each of those things to help you start to scale and build Mekka Don? Because now we're going to get into the music business.
Yeah. I think first I'll start with the discipline. It's so funny how you just wove those things together. I think they do belong together in a lot of ways. Understanding the discipline that it takes to be successful and consistency was one of the things that I saw in the football landscape and world, and also in law school. Every day we grinded. People in law school grinded. There weren't really lots of days off that you could take, and there was a schedule. And I'm not even talking about just going to class, yeah, that too, but just even the studying schedule. We're studying 10 hours a day, regular days. I'm not even talking about once you start studying for the bar. My gosh, now you're talking 14, 16-hour days. But that's what it took, and that's what it took to be successful. That's what it took to even understand the material and really feel like you were, put yourself in position to be comfortable with what it is that you were learning. And that's what everybody was doing. So it also made you realize, wow, okay, this is what it takes to be successful consistently. I'm not special necessarily because I'm doing this. At least in this environment, I'm not. And that's what it takes to be successful. The second thing that you mentioned, which I think is also important, is skills that you learn that you don't realize you learn that are very, very important as you go into anything. Research, reading, understanding what exactly it is that that you're getting yourself involved in. What is it about this business? What is the business? And we'll talk about this a little bit, I imagine, but we're talking about music industry versus music business, two totally different things. Understanding where to go to research. And this time, you're not talking, the internet was out, but it wasn't like it is now. You can't just go on, hey, there's no chat GPT you can just get quick answers from. You have to actually go research and learn and talk to people and attend events and find the experts and read. those are things that I think I also learned during that period of time that really, really helped me understand what it was that I was going to have to do to kind of build the brand that I wanted in terms of day to day, and then creating the systems and understanding how to leverage those systems to become great at whatever it is that I wanted to do.
So tell us how did you get into the music business? Because I was like, all right, athlete, law school, okay, cool, music. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how? Okay, so that's just like a segue to somewhere. And I mean, you are heavy in the music business. So how did that evolve?
So when I was in high school, well, first of all, growing up in my house, I'm the youngest of four kids, and there was music constantly played through my house, every single type of music. My parents and my siblings, and so we listened to everything growing up. And so I always had a deep appreciation for music. I was breakdancing for people in the neighborhood when I was 4 or 5 years old. Like that, I was involved that way. Started writing music with my siblings when we were like 8, 9, when I was like 8 or 9. Not nothing good, but just experimenting with writing. And then as I got to high school, my brother and I decided we were going to form a band. And my brother bought a whole bunch of equipment on a credit card that I don't know where he got it from, but and he ended up bringing a whole bunch of equipment home to the basement. And my cousin and I and another guy formed the band. So we were playing. This is high school, so we were playing all different types of music. I was the drummer, and really fell in love with just creating different types of music. My brother ended up having to leave because he went to med school, and so my cousin and I would be there every day. And my brother was the lead singer, and he was the guitarist, and we didn't have a band anymore, but we still wanted to create music. So we started messing around with the synthesizer, trying to create beats, and we obviously loved hip hop too. So we started like trying to rap and stuff like that, and that's kind of when it really started. But then I went to high school, finished high school, went to college, did some performing actually in college. Still cared about it. Was writing, still really really trying to pursue it, but not in a way that, I still had the other thing. Obviously, I'm on the football team. I have academic scholarships, so I couldn't fully pursue, but I was still engaging a lot in music. And one of the reasons why I wanted to move to New York and why I was so grateful that I got into to NYU was because I wanted to pursue a career eventually in music. But I knew I had all these other obligations that I had to kind of take care of that were first and foremost. But I knew New York, I could kill multiple birds with one stone there. Obviously, go to law school, be in the entertainment industry, just learn from the best. And so even before law school, I deferred law school for a year, and I was in the city for a year and just kind of running around meeting people. And that's how I got my feet wet in entertainment. I was, modeling, acting. I was in music videos. I was doing all kinds of stuff. Just hustled my way into it. I didn't know anybody when I got to New York. But by the time that first year was up and I ended up starting law school, I knew tons of people. And so I had kind of kept my feet wet in those industries while I was in law school, but again, not at the level, any real serious level, because I was really, really focused on law school, particularly the first couple of years. And then when after I graduated law school, passed the bar, went and worked at a big firm, I knew that eventually I was going to want to leave and really go pursue this entertainment industry. And I had made a lot of connections by this point in time. I was throwing parties in New York at that point, throwing parties with celebrities and athletes. And one of my roommates played for the New York Giants. And, so I was in that world as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that eventually if I was going to do it, I had to do it soon because I didn't want to get used to the salary that I was making. I was 24 when I graduated from law school, making
Okay.
$160,000 a year plus bonus. Sounds like a lot of money. And,
So you was balling back then.
in New York City, having fun. But what I realized was that, this wasn't my dream. And the longer that I stayed, the more I was going to get used to the salary and the benefits and the Yankees tickets and all these other things, the whole golden handcuffs, as they say. And for me, that wasn't my dream. And nothing wrong if it is for somebody else. I think that's great. For me, it wasn't. So I ended up eventually leaving after about a year working at the firm. And man, it was a whirlwind because, my parents were nervous. Family was kind of like,
Yeah, what did your parents have to say about that?
well, my
Hey,
mom,
mom, I'm leaving law school and be a rapper. I
yeah.
want to. I want to hear that conversation.
So interestingly, my mom, I think she always thought I was going to be a star, so to speak. I'm the baby, so it wasn't that big of a deal to her. And again, I think I built up a lot of trust in them with my decision making by this point. Again, I'm not coming to you saying, "Hey, I'm dropping out of law school to go do this." I'm coming to you as a barred attorney in New York, worked at a top 10 law firm who's now going to pursue a dream. So I've set up a backup plan theoretically that you can at least see, even if you don't understand what I'm doing next. I feel like she kind of could appreciate that. My dad appreciated that too, but again, it's kind of like, why? Why? This is theoretically, you're the youngest of four. We finally got our last one off. You're set, you're stable, you have your situation, and now you're gonna go leave to this very uncertain thing that I don't understand. You don't have a record deal, you don't have an investor, you don't have any type of situation set up. So I don't know how you're gonna make money. I don't know what this is gonna look like. I don't know what this industry is. What does success even mean? It was rough. It was rough. So I know he called my siblings, kind of like, yo, talk to him, like get him back on track. And they called me, but at the end of the day, it was one of those tough things for them because I had saved up a lot of money. I wasn't asking anybody for any money. I'm not a trust fund baby. I didn't, I had again, it's not the story of dropping out and leaving and not knowing, kind of giving up. I did everything. I've done everything that theoretically you would have wanted me to do at that point in time. And now it's time for me to go live my life and live my dream. And again, I'm not a person that makes random decisions. That doesn't mean there wasn't a little bit of crazy, right? It was a little crazy. It's crazy. I look back, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of crazy,
A little bit.
Yeah. But I think I built up enough credibility to where people kind of had to accept it. And so I jumped out and I went out there and I just really believed in myself that, through my connections that I had already made, through the hustle that I had, and through kind of my understanding of the industry, that I would find my way. And that was, now looking back, I realized how bold and you know, audacious that was. But at the time, it just felt like the right thing to do.
So you've got a lot. You're very talented. That's why I wanted you to talk to you today. I mean, you're an actor, you're a lawyer, you're an athlete. Do you feel like being multi-talented is a brand advantage, or do you think it's a risk?
It is, it can be both. And I think that part of what you have to really do is you have to get a hold of what it is that you're selling and what it is that people are perceiving about you. Sometimes if you get a business card and you look at the business card and it says this, and this. I do. It's kind of like you're like, all right, this person's not really good at anything,
Get in
probably.
a lane.
Yeah. And it's like they might do all of those things and they might have interest in all those things. And technically they might be good at all of those things. But the way people perceive that is that, okay, you're unfocused, you're master, jack of all trades, but master of none. So I've dealt with that a number of different times. I think though that if you're intentional about, and you and I have talked about this actually before, if you're intentional about kind of how you weave those things together, then I think they can start making sense to people. So when I had conversations with people about my brand as an attorney, as a consultant, as a tech founder, as a rapper, they look at all those things and they seem like they're separate. But when you really boil it down to, this is how I communicate with people, this is how I express myself. It's all about purpose. It's all about intentionality. It's all about inspiring people, giving people a platform, expression. Then you realize that all of these things are really just different forms of expression, all geared towards the same goal, which is empowerment, right? And trying to empower the next generation. Everything that I'm doing is empowerment related, including music. So if your brand now it becomes an empowerment brand, and people can view it that way, then they could see all of these things that are happening underneath. They could categorize them and understand what they mean and what they mean in the broader sense. But if you're not intentional about building that, it could definitely hurt you because then people don't know who you are, what you do, what you stand for. And so then the other risk with that too is that people won't think of you when someone mentions that they need someone that does X, Y, and Z. And that's one of the things that I think is an underrated part of business and networking is that you want people to think of you when someone says, "Hey, do you know anyone that does this? Do you know anyone that does brand consulting? Do you know anyone that does?" You want to be the person that they think about, and that a lot of business happens that way. So you have to be very intentional about it, and then also and then sometimes you have to put the actual talents, certain talents, on the back burner.
Yeah.
Even if you have them, like there's talents that I know I have right now that I'm not necessarily using, and I think that's okay. At times, you don't always have to be doing every single thing But you just have to have a strategy.
I think it's about credibility too.
Mm,
I think, you know, I'm in the same boat with you. I have all these talents,
mhm.
but you don't want to be out here like, oh, I can fix sinks, I can put
Yeah,
up drywall,
right.
I can do a podcast,
Yeah, right.
You
100%.
looking crazy out
Yeah,
here. But I
yeah,
think if you have that credibility, I think that's what counts. How did you maintain your credibility? You have all these different talents. How
yeah.
was it that you maintained your credibility?
I
Credibility.
think I think the number one way was operating with professionalism. So I
Mm,
approached every single thing with professionalism, including hip hop, including when I was an actor and doing extra work before I even got bumped up to better work. One of the things that I had a casting director tell me early on in my time in New York, she said, Mecca, she pulled me aside one day. She said, "You know why I always book you?" I was like, "Why?" Because she always booked me, right? And
mm,
I never, I thought we just had a good relationship, and she, I thought I was doing a good job. And she's like, obviously you're talented. She's like, but the reason why I always book you, she said, because I can count on you. She said, every time I book you, no matter what it is the instructions, you follow them. If I need any paperwork or materials from you, you give them to me. Whatever time you need to be on set, you're always there and you've never been late. She's like, you don't understand. She's like, just keep that. And I was young and I always remember this. This was many, many years ago. She's like, keep that. She's like, that's a very valuable trait in this world. And so I realized that I think that's part of how I continue to maintain credibility was that first of all, I just because I'm interested in something doesn't necessarily mean I'm talented. So I tried not to delve into things that I'm just interested in that I didn't actually have real talent in and also do the work to make sure that I understand what's going on. When I present myself as a lawyer, I went to NYU Law School. I'm barred in New York City. I worked at one of the top 10 law firms. And then I also approach everything very professional. It's hard not to respect that unless you just don't choose not to. Music, same thing. I have, my own company, collaborations with major artists, MTV Award, ESPN, HBO, Ohio State collaborations. Again, you don't have to respect it, but that's my approach. So I try to establish a certain level of credibility and experience in the industry that I'm in and present it that way, but then also operate with professionalism. Same thing when I performed nationally on Fox, Big Noon Kickoff last year. We had pre-meetings, we had sound checks, we had on-set things, we had timing. It was very specific timing that you had to have because this is live TV. So there's all these type of things, and there was no hiccup. There were no hiccups, but I realized part of it is because the professionalism, the communication. I wasn't showing up with 30 people. I wasn't coming late. I wasn't trying to, change things last minute. I understood kind of the process. So I think that's part of this. When people deal with you, what is the experience that they're getting? And those are the things that people will talk to other people about.
And that all started with your foundation in football.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
That
100%.
started with that foundation, not with just any football program, but a
Mhm.
particular football program that helped build your business acumen.
100%. And just your thoughts on how to approach life and accountability. I think accountability is a big word that, maybe we don't say enough, but just being accountable to yourself and then being accountable to the people around you, whether, excuse me, whether it's your teammates, excuse me, or clients, accountability. Excuse me.
So you're building this personal brand and men of many talents, men of all this hats you're wearing. And I know other people are doing that out here as well.
Mhm.
What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to build a personal brand?
I think one of the a couple mistakes that people make when they're building a personal brand is first of all is forgetting why they're doing it. If you don't remember why you're doing it or what your goals are, then it will end up being or feeling random. So you'll do certain things some days, other days you won't. You'll kind of blow with the wind and go with what feels good or go with what's paying the bills that day. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that sometimes, but it has to all be kind of within a strategy, which brings me to my next point. Most people don't have an actual strategy,
Hmm.
right? So, and then an end goal or a destination. Where is it that you're trying to go? What does that look like? And sometimes I think it's important to kind of reverse engineer or reverse roadmap and look at, okay, this is what the end looks like. And then let me look backward. If I were to actually say all the steps that I needed to get there, what would that actually look like to get there? Let me look at somebody who's done something similar to me and look at what their journey was and then kind of reverse engineer. I don't think enough people do that. And then the other thing I think is consistency. I think that is the biggest issue that people have is just being consistent with whatever it is that you're doing. I think that life is rough and tough. And if you have kids or if you have a family or you have, other responsibilities, a dog, it can, your days can get, you know, switched up. My kids, for example, are both sick, both home sick this week, and I work from home. So what is it? What does that mean business stops? No, it doesn't. So there are those wrenches that get thrown into your life, things that you can't control. And that sometimes that can affect your consistency and that can affect your plan or can affect your ability to execute. But I think ultimately that is where I see a lot of people struggle is being able to, kind of balance, the other things that they need to do with their life with making sure that they're consistent about building their personal brand. And then also being able to bounce back when the storms do come. And that's all of these things are connected. That's why the why matters. You can bounce back a lot easier when you remember why you're doing something. If you're doing something for a very frivolous or superficial reason, when you face a couple pieces of adversity, you're gonna stop. You're not gonna push through. So I think just really, really understanding and hopefully tying what you're doing, your personal brand to things that you love, things that you enjoy, and then being strategic about where you're trying to go, being consistent and being disciplined. Those are the things that I think are extremely important in building a personal brand.
I think you touched on a really good point about what is your why.
Hmm.
I think that's just the roof on top of the house right now. Because if you don't know what your why is, it's going to resonate on every facet of your business.
Hmm.
I
100%.
always say my why is my freedom.
Hmm.
I I am the Harriet Tubman of entrepreneurship because
I
I
love it.
want to be free.
Yeah. I love
I
it.
wanted that. That is my why. That
Yeah.
is it is my freedom. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to be free.
Hmm.
And
Love it.
so that's why I build my brand and the things that I do. What is your why? Why do you do what you do?
I think that it's a mix of two things. I think what my one why is absolutely what you just said is freedom, right? To be able to make decisions and not be hamstrung by certain organizations or bottlenecks. Uh, the second thing I would say is legacy or purpose, right? And I know, and I understand that there's some ego probably tied to that, and some people think it's whatever. But I think that I want to the way that I've kind of interpreted what life means for me is that I want to be able to leave this place better than I found it. I want my kids and my family and anybody that comes in contact with me to be positively affected by any interaction that they have with me as a result of just me being purposeful and intentional. So I want to share knowledge. I want to give back. I want to learn. I want to be part of ecosystems as well. But I think that that's kind of what my purpose is. So that's my why. So everything that I'm doing business wise, even the new platform I started is all to help people advance, help themselves. Yes, I want to make money, of course, but in a way that I feel like is ethical, in a way that I feel like is trustworthy and with the right intention. So I think those are my whys.
So that's a good segue because let's talk about now you doing everything else under the sun. And then I remember we were talking one day, you're like, I got something going on. I'm like, what else could you possibly be doing now, Mecca? I mean, what else can you gonna go to the moon? I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
And you like, I ain't gonna tell you, I ain't gonna tell you. And I'm scrolling on LinkedIn and I was like, what is ELLIFLY? What? So you got all this stuff. Tell us about ELLIFLY.
Yeah. So ELLIFLY is an AI powered brand management platform that helps businesses and professionals generate consistent content for every platform uh, on brand. And it's really a brand alignment system that I developed that I realized that a lot of businesses and professionals have pain points. We're talking about brand and kind of managing their brand on social media, being present, being consistent. knowing what to say, having a voice that is kind of identifiable and consistent across platforms. Most people either don't have the time to do it, they don't have the ideas, or they don't have the money to pay a brand consultant or a social media manager, but they do know that they need to be consistent and they don't have any system to do it. So that's what birthed ELLIFLY. I think just talking to enough people and then me having some of those pains myself as someone who is on social media every day on multiple platforms, multiple times. It is a lot, even for someone who knows what they're doing, so to speak. So I can only imagine what it is like for the average person and the average business. And by average, I don't mean average that way. I just mean like a business, a small business that realizes that, like, look, I just want to focus on my business. I don't want to focus on all this other stuff. But it can be a very, very, not a death sentence, but close if you're not realizing the value and understanding how important it is to be consistent online daily. So that's why I built ELLIFLY. We did, months of beta and then launched January 26th, which is, I mean, it's been an amazing start. I think that, to get the level of attention and users that it's gotten initially really confirmed what I had already believed, which was that a lot of people had these pain points as it related to social media and branding. And ELLIFLY gives them a system that's very affordable, by the way, to do so. So right now I'm all in on ELLIFLY. That all the other things that I've done to up to this point in my life, I feel like it brought me exactly to this moment because all of the things that I understand about law and entertainment and branding and consulting and tech and AI and relationships and partnerships and discipline, all the other things that we've talked about, all of them have led me to this exact platform because it really, all of those skills have been useful and will be useful. All of the relationships have been useful and will be useful. And it really, I feel like all of the, when I talk about the purpose and my why and empowering people and letting people, giving people the ability to make themselves better as a result of the fact that they interacted with me, I feel like it fits all of those categories. So it is extremely exciting for me.
It's amazing. I was doing a sneak peek. I was like, "Ooh, this is something I need right here."
Yes. Yes.
Do AI is everywhere.
Hmm.
And if you ain't getting on board, you're gonna be left behind. I'm here
100%.
when I'm about to get certified right now.
I love it.
Um, I think there's some things I love. I use it every day.
Mhm.
But I think it's getting out of control. That's just my personal opinion, y'all. Don't come for me in the comments. But
Mhm.
do you feel like AI is enhancing authenticity, or do you think it's really hurting it?
I think it depends on how it's being used. So I think in some ways it's absolutely hurting authenticity. In fact, one of my use cases for why ELLIFLY is so important, particularly with people who actually have brands already, is that there are a lot of inauthentic people that are coming. And they're coming to steal your job or steal your market share or steal your positioning because they know that they can flood the market with AI generated content at a crazy rate, boosting their SEOs, pushing your name down, and appearing to be the credible, reliable, expert resource in that space. So there's definitely a lot of that. And I think that is one of the downsides of it. The flip side, I think, is if you're using it as a tool or a system to help you kind of be more efficient in the way that you already are, then I think that it could enhance authenticity. So, for example, ELLIFLY, one of the ways that we kind of start off in ELLIFLY is by understanding who the user is. So we have a number of questions, kind of our voice profile system that we end up putting together is based on how you answer these questions. So archetypes in a way, but also just really learning you and the things that you care about, how you talk, how you communicate. So it's when you, and then from there you'll be able to generate content, just a click of a button for any platform in your brand voice. Now, I still want you to review it and make sure like this sounds like you, but it will because at the end of the day, it's almost like having a ghostwriter. I mean, the AI is not different than in that regard than what people have been doing for many, many
For
years.
years, a
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And when people are busy and when you're busy, that's why people hire people. That's why they hire assistants. That's why they hire ghostwriters to write their book. That's why they hire help It's not because it makes you now inauthentic. It's that sometimes you need a faster, more I don't know, just a better way to kind of get your thoughts out there. And so I think if you're using it from that perspective, being sure that you're at least kind of double checking your work and making sure, then I think it's 100% fine. I think it's exactly what people who are busy actually need. When you're spending 30 minutes writing an email, that is not an efficient use of time. And then you're going back and editing and then double checking, and that's not an efficient use of our time. So I don't think that email, because it was generated through ELLIFLY, now means that you're inauthentic. I just think that you got the help and the assistance that I think most of us need. So it really all depends on how you use it. I think there are very terrible things about AI, if I'm being honest, and where
Mhm.
it's going and where it could go, and very scary things about it. But I do think that there's some also very positive things about it as well. Freeing up, you talk about freedom, right? Freeing up time
Yeah.
to be able to do other things, or to be able to focus on your business or your clients, I think is an exceptionally powerful thing.
I think where it has gotten out of control for me is this whole AI twin thing.
Hmm.
I feel like, yes, no, sometimes I do not have time to get in front of the camera, get my little microphone, and
Yeah,
say what I got to say.
yeah,
But for example, if I'm always using my AI twin to say what I got to say, somebody like say, hey, can you come speak? Who's showing up? You
yeah.
or
Right.
the AI
The
twin?
lines are going to get
Right.
blurred, and it's going to be where the reason why AI is particularly dangerous is because where do you actually draw the line? It's going to be hard for people to draw a line at their potential theoretical, moral, or ethical lines when it's kind of like what happened with baseball and steroids. It's kind of like a lot of guys started doing steroids because they saw other guys were doing steroids, and it's like, well, hold on. You're not about to be out here getting a big, huge contract and making my numbers look crazy because you're out here, enhancing. So I'm going to start enhancing. I'm not saying that makes it right, but you can understand how that could happen. I think that same type of thing can happen in AI. People are losing jobs as a result of not being faster, quicker, better. They're going to find ways to be faster, quicker, and better. And AI allows you to do that. And so at a certain point, where is it a race? Are we racing to roboticism? Are we racing to where are we racing to? But and there are no rules or regulations around it. And I think at this point in time, people are trying to survive, and they're trying to figure out ways to be more efficient, ways to stand out more, ways to be faster. And it is you can have all the integrity you want, but at a certain point, if you can't compete speed wise, efficiency wise, a lot of those bounds are going to start getting tested. And so, I think you're right to point out that people should do their best to be authentic and use it, authentically. But I think that there are going to be some real crossroads that people are going to have to cross, particularly in the
Yeah.
job market. Mm.
Yeah, 100%, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. So as you're scaling your brands, you said you left some things behind, some things you're doing now, some things you're not doing anymore.
Yeah.
What's something that you stopped doing that actually helped you scale your brand?
So I think music right now is, I've transitioned out of that phase of my life in music where I'm performing nationally, going on tour, putting out albums, all that type of stuff. Like obviously music will always be a part of me and my brand, but slowing that part of things down, I think taking the lessons that I learned from there, the relations that I learned from there, the notoriety or whatever word you want to use that I got from it, and transitioning into business. That's what a lot of the guys that I looked up to have done, and the guys that came up in the hip hop game, particularly Nas and Chamillionaire, and those guys. They took the lessons, they took the fame, they took the relationships, and went and became businessmen. And I really admire that. So does that mean that Nas won't put out an album? No, he's still gonna release, but he's not doing that day to day. And so that freed up a lot of time and a lot of energy to kind of focus on what I'm doing now. ELLIFLY is my baby. It is everything that I've wanted, that I've kind of wanted, and music is part of the reason why I got there. The relationships that I built with music, the understanding of the kind of ecosystems, and I think that was a very, very helpful for me in terms of even people that I'm talking to now. It's the type of people that I'm able to communicate with or have relationships with as a result of the name I made for myself in music has been exceptional. So That's one of the things right there. It kind of sucks sometimes because music is still my number one passion, but it was the right thing for sure.
Do you think you ever go back?
I mean, I'll definitely make music still consistently, not necessarily consistently, but I'll definitely make music again. I'll do that till I'm not here anymore. But in terms of the idea of like touring and leaving my family for months and trying to put out album after
Mm.
album and being on a record deal and doing that type of thing, I don't have the energy for that anymore. And really the same type of passion for that side of things. We talked a little bit earlier. I mentioned this very early in the interview was about the music difference between the music business and the music industry. I actually hate both, but I love music. So that was always my conflict. I hate the industry. I don't like how fake it is, how fleeting it is.
Mm.
I understand it, but I don't like it. I also don't like the music business that well because it's one of the very few industries where a lot of people don't even really understand how the money works. A lot of people, including executives, like they tell you, okay, how much exactly am I going to make off of X, Y, and Z? How much exactly, what is a mechanical royalty? There's all these terms and the way the money flows, that's why you have a lot of artists that'll come back and they're suing different labels. Like you kept publishing money. It's very unclear,
Yeah.
right? Even for the smart people. And so I don't like that side of things as well. So I although I missed the music and creation and consistency part from that perspective, I don't miss the business part or the industry part.
All right, I got some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay,
You ready?
do it.
Discipline or charisma?
Discipline.
Personal brand or product first?
Woo-hoo! Uh, product first.
Best platform for long-term brand equity?
ELLIFLY.
Of course. Music, law, or tech? Hardest pivot.
Music.
One word that defines your empire.
Aware.
Ah, that's amazing. I like that. Mecca, this has been so great. I thank you for being on Side Hustle Saturday. I wanted to talk. Every time we would talk, we would be like, da 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 da. I got to go, Lisa. I got to be looking at you. I got things to do. We would just chit chat. But I'm
Yeah.
so glad you took some time to come and be on my podcast, talk about personal branding because it's so important. Talk about building ecosystems because we're building empires out here, y'all.
Mhm.
We're not just building one business, one service, one product. We're building on that to build the empire. And I think that's important. We need to talk about that a lot more. But I want you to tell everybody if they wanted to work with you, if they wanted to, on ELLIFLY, if they wanted to work with you maybe on some music, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, first, let me push ELLIFLY. So it's www.ellifly.com. That's ELLIFLY. You can go on there and check out all the different plans that we have. Get started. Our social media is ELLIFLY AI, and that's on every platform. So follow us there. My personal platforms are social medias, all Mekka Don Music at Mekka Don Music, MEKKADONMUSIC. So every platform that you're on. You can find me there and send me a DM if there's any thoughts or any thoughts on collaboration. And then this beautiful, beautiful website that this amazing person I know built for me, MekkaDonEnterprises.com. So you can go check that out and you can find out more information on me and how to work with me and my team as well. So really appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I really appreciate your time and for you having me, Lisa.
Thank you so much. And everybody, I'm gonna put all that information in the details so you can get in contact and follow him on LinkedIn
Yeah.
too. Don't forget about LinkedIn. We skip it on LinkedIn, but follow him on LinkedIn as well. I'll put all his details in the description below. And y'all know what to do. Subscribe to Side Hustle Saturday.
Right.
I got some really amazing guests coming up. We're talking about building ecosystems and empires so we can make that money. And also, please follow me on all my platforms. I'm going to put that in the description below. I can't talk today. I'm going to put it in the description below. Mecca, thank you so much for being on Side Hustle Saturday. I really appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I'll be talking to y'all soon. Peace out.